CP Brenda Jones. And this morning, I am joined by our Congresswoman, I'm sure she'll be in shortly, Brenda Lawrence, who represents the Michigan 14th Congressional District, and Michigan Assistant Secretary of State, Heaster Wheeler. We want to get a full Washington, D.C. update. And after we get that Washington, D.C. update, we will also hear from our Secretary of State, Heaster Wheeler, and then you will have an opportunity to ask your questions and get your answers. And if you are Facebook Live, you can type your questions in. If you are on the phone and you have a question, you can dial *9 on your phone and we will get an answer to your question. Has our Congresswoman joined us yet?
Good morning.
She'll be on shortly.
Okay, thank you. So as we are waiting on our Congresswoman to join us, and since we do have Mr. Wheeler here, we will just start getting some information from you, Mr. Wheeler. So let me just ask you, are you staying home and are you staying safe?
Yes. I've actually enjoyed some of the benefits of just being at home and taking advantage of the need to put technology to work and get some things accomplished. I was telling Stacy and Stephen earlier, I actually work out every other day. I get two a days in. I do a little stretching almost every day, but lots of cardio and some strength training, reading a lot, catching up on some things. So I'm staying home, staying safe. Wife and son are all here. So blessed beyond measure.
Okay. And let me offer to you my condolences on the loss of your family member. Know that we have definitely been lifting you and your entire family up in prayer.
And I appreciate you too, Madam President. People have been so kind. I mean, God continues to smile on us and our family. My nephew was 39 years old, married, 5 children, worked full time as an essential worker and had his own business. So he was quite a hustler, very, very committed father. So he was one of the best. So this COVID-19 moment is especially real. It's especially significant. It was always personal, but it's especially personal to me and our family. And while this COVID-19 is in fact a pandemic, if you listen to me long enough, I'll just always remind you that we have several other pandemics that we've been reminded of. Racism is a pandemic that requires a state of emergency, and access to healthcare is a pandemic that requires a state of emergency. But I'm going to stop right there because I see the wonderful, our illustrious Madam Congresswoman. She and I were tag teaming yesterday, and I just love her leadership, and she is on the front line. So I will yield my time, and I'll come back when you say so, Madam President. Good morning.
Thank you. And I see my friend, my Congresswoman, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. It is good to see you this morning.
Turn your microphone on too. There you go.
Okay, all right. We have you live this morning, Congresswoman. It is good to see you. And I just want to start off by saying congratulations on the House passing the Health and the Economic Recovery Ombuds Emergency Solution Act. I just want to say thank you, and congratulations. And that is better known as the HEROES Act.
Yes.
And it is $3 trillion in tax cuts, and spending is desperately needed to provide financial relief to the state and the local governments like Detroit and Wayne County, which is desperately in very hard hit and impacted by COVID-19. And I believe it's in the hands of the Senate now. So can you just give us an overview of the HEROES Act and the next steps regarding the act?
I want to say good morning to the amazing Council President Brenda Jones and to my good friend who just spoke. It's always good to start your morning with good people. So I just want to say good morning and thank you for everything that we're doing. And this is a time more than ever that we need to connect arms and get the job done. Again, I'm Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. I represent the Michigan 14th District. Let me start by saying I hope everyone is doing well. I'm so thankful for your healthy recovery, Madam President. My prayers were with you and also with your family. This past Monday, I hosted a town hall with representatives from the state, county, and city to give an update on requesting reopening the state and what that means. We all know that we're at a point now where we're going to have to start reopening. I support the governor of being deliberate and being compassionate and being really a strong leader and saying that our lives is worth the inconvenience. For anyone who has gone through this virus or lost someone from this virus, know that this is not political. This is not about your political affiliation. This is about saving lives, and I want to thank her for her work. Starting today, healthcare providers can perform non-essential medical procedures in Tuesday, May 26th, retail stores, which the Council President and I have an affiliation for. We have been on our shopping trips. But on Tuesday, May 26th, the retail stores and car dealerships will open. I'm a member of the governor's task force on racial disparities, medical racial disparities. That's led by Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist. And we have been doing, I think, just some amazing work in ensuring that testing is happening all over the state, that those zip codes that were high volume zip codes get testing. I want to thank the Council President for her leadership in making sure that the state fairgrounds open up, that the TCF open up at a time when we were in the middle of our crisis to serve our community. Last Friday, I want to talk about the HEROES Act. The House Democrats voted to pass a $3 trillion COVID response measure, the HEROES Act. And I want to tell you a little bit about what it covers. You know what's important? The Postal Service. So you're hearing this discussion about the opportunity to vote by mail. And during this virus, it's not only an opportunity, it may be the only way that we'll be able to vote safely. We've seen it being played out all over the country, where states now are going to vote by mail. The Postal Service is key to that. We have talked about the census and how important it is for us to fill out our census. And to everyone listening, if you're on this call and have not done your census, now do it today. It doesn't take, it's only 9 questions, doesn't take that long. But in order for our census to work, in order for our vote by mail so our democracy is protected, we need to have a strong postal service. And the president has something with Amazon, where he does not want Amazon to be successful. And he thinks because the Postal Service has a contract with Amazon, that is an opportunity for him to destroy Amazon by ending that contract. And he said he won't give the Postal Service the money that they need unless they end that contract. This is just another example of failed leadership by this current administration. But I'm happy to say the HEROES Act gave $25 billion in emergency funding. for the Postal Service, and $15 million for the Inspector General to conduct oversight of the funding. So not only did we give the money, but we also provided for a watchdog to make sure it goes to the right place if there are any concerns. Broadband. Madam President, we know that this virus has just ripped the scab off of so many failures that we have in our country. One is the digital divide. And when I'm in Congress, the Black Caucus had to lift its voice because everyone wanted to talk about the digital divide in rural America, which is real. Because once you get out to those rural communities, they don't have the broadband infrastructure to have internet in their homes. And in addition to that, we had to raise our voice because right here in the city of Detroit, in urban areas all around this country, there's a digital divide. We told all our children, go home and learn from home, do internet classwork. Well, you sent children home and that wasn't even a reality. If we have heads of households who are working, doing everything they can to put food, shelter, and clothing on their children and their family, and the budget paying a monthly cable bill is not a reality. So you have children who at best are trying to do homework on a cell phone, who don't have the ability to print out classwork. And so we provided for $1.5 billion to close, we call it the homework gap. And that would be funding for hotspots and connect device for students and library partners. $4 billion would be for emergency home connectability. We also, state and local governments, oh my goodness, we saw, as a former mayor, I'm just uniquely aware of the challenge that we have right now in our cities and municipalities. All of the resources that cities has taken up, and I applaud Detroit for the things that they did to protect and to provide resources for the community. We had to look at that, and the state has really stepped up. But Ms. President Jones, one of the things that I'm most concerned about is the fact that when we look at the budget, the state government must balance their budget. And if they don't, they're going to have to cut back on schools, and we can't afford any of that. So that's some of the things that I wanted to highlight for you, and I'll stay on for any questions that you may have. And the funding for cities, states, and counties. And the city of Detroit will get direct funding. The city of cities that are over 50,000 will receive their money directly. And those who are under will get their money from the state. And the county will get funding as well.
Okay, let me thank you for that update, Congresswoman. Let me ask you, what is the next step? What happens now that the House has passed that HEROES Act? What happens now?
So this is the challenge that we have. And you remember when you were there, the Mitch McConnell graveyard. So what Mitch McConnell does is he has refused to take up bills that he said that the President of the United States won't sign. Let me be clear, what is the responsibility of Congress? It's to listen to their constituents, come together in the established process of Congress, and in an open and public way, pass laws and vote on the right laws, vote on them, and then send it to the Senate, because we have a two-body system. Mitch McConnell's process has been, and it's unfortunate, that if he doesn't agree with the bill, he just won't bring it to the floor to vote. And that's the crime that is being committed. To give you an example, violence against women. We passed the bill to say that we will renew the law that we had that expired that would protect women in the legal system against violence, domestic violence. He put it in the graveyard. He won't even bring it to the floor. And this bill, which is $3 trillion, and the U.S. Conference of Mayors, who have Republicans and Democrats, the National Association of Governors, who are Democrats and Republicans, are telling this administration, we need that money, pass it. And what he does is that he denies the entire Senate the opportunity to debate, to send to committee, for the public to observe where they are with the bill, to change it, because they have the right in Congress, in Senate. We don't particularly like this part of the bill. We want more funding, less funding. He won't even bring it to the floor. And so the people are denied the laws and policies that's being written by their representatives. And so right now, he's saying it's dead on arrival, which means that he's sending it to his graveyard. Why not bring it up, Mr. McConnell? Debate it, change it, and bring it to the floor to vote on it. That's what you're there for. It's not for you to act as a demigod and say that I don't like this, we're not even going to bring it to the floor. And so that's where we are now. I did hear a hint that they may take it up in June, and we'll see.
So what is your gut feeling, Congresswoman? Do you think that he is going to do what he needs to do, or do you think he's going to just hold it?
Right now, it looks like he's just going to hold it, but I am under the belief that by the time these Republican governors and cities, mayors, really continue to sit on their representatives and they're going to start feeling the heat, he's going to have to do something.
Okay, thank you. And you said you think that will be, they will go back and do what they need to do in June, beginning of June?
Yes. The other thing is in that bill that Mitch McConnell has a big problem with, it's another stimulus check. As you know, everyone got the stimulus check based on your income, and the gratitude for people receiving that has been tremendous. He does not want to do that again. In addition to that, it also has additional funding for testing, mobile testing that we know is going to be the key to preventing another outbreak. So he's going to have to, I'm hoping that those who have Republican senators, that they just really ride their senators and say, get to work and do your job.
Okay, thank you so very much for that update. I want to just encourage all of the listeners that are listening with us today, please call your senators and ask them to get on the McConnell, get on Senator McConnell, and ask him to do what is right, because that money is needed, not just in Michigan, it is needed throughout the United States. This is not a Michigan virus. This virus is affecting people throughout the United States. So please encourage your family members to call their senators, and everyone, just call your senators, write your senators, do whatever you need to do so that they will hear your voice and so they will know how important it is to get this HEROES Act passed. Please do that. Thank you so much for that update, Congresswoman. And I know our listeners are just waiting to be able to ask you questions. So thank you so much for that update. I want to go to Mr. Wheeler, and I know we have the stay home, stay safe executive order in place until May 28th, which is coming up very soon, which is next week. We don't know if the governor is going to extend that stay home, stay safe restriction again, but whatever she does, I will stand firmly with her. I appreciate her for everything she has been doing, and I stand with her very strong. And I know just yesterday she approved gathering of up to 10 people. So we should be getting ready, making sure we have our masks to go on our face when we're out and doing what we need to do. So, Mr. Deputy Secretary of State, the Secretary of State offices will close, is that correct?
That's correct. In fact, our target today is June 1 to reopen. And let me say a couple things about the Secretary of State's function and our branches, but a special thank you to Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence. One of the first national town hall meetings that I participated in back in the middle of March, our national leadership said, trusted messengers only. Don't take information from anybody. You are immediately in that category, and I just applaud you for continuing to shine. I mean, but you are continuing to shine your light very, very bright in this period of darkness. So kudos to you for just keeping hope alive and fighting this good fight. And I applaud you as one of our trusted messengers. And I ain't listening to everybody, especially.
No, that's right.
You know, Heaster Willer, your name has always shown up in a place where we needed a voice. And I'm just so grateful that you're now on a state leadership role. Your integrity and your work ethic is something that a lot of people say they have, but you don't have to say it because you do the work. I just want to thank you. And you just have amazing, you have created amazing members of the next generation that I applaud you. Your son, who is just—
Oh, bless you. Yeah, thank you.
Please tell him I said hello.
I will. Thank you so much. Well, you know, I believe the very best way to predict the future is to create it. So I pay particular attention to young people. So thank you so much. And Council President Brenda Jones, thank you for inviting me to this important discussion. Let me talk a little bit about the Secretary of State's office, because most people view the Secretary of State as the chief driving official, driver's licenses, traffic-related activity, which is absolutely true. But Jocelyn Benson likes to remind people that you know, the Secretary of State is also the chief elections officer with a chief elections administration officer. So we've got several functions, and one includes oversight of the elections process here in Michigan. Some 1,500 plus clerks from across the state. And our job is to try and add some unifying activity, unifying energy around how the elections work. As it relates to the Secretary of State's offices, going forward, it's by appointment only. So anybody that has a reason to go to the Secretary of State office, start making your appointments now. You can go to michigan.gov/Secretary of State or SOS and start making your appointments now. Also be reminded that if you have a driver's license or a license tab, anything that expired between February 1 and June 30, you're automatically extended. The governor, in all of her busyness, and you are absolutely right, Madam Congresswoman and Madam President, what we see in these moments, particularly by this governor's bold leadership, but she has extended executive order after executive order just to clarify processes as we go forward. But executive order number 2020-47 specifically speaks to something that I just want to articulate. I hate to read to you, but I want you to hear this firsthand and be reminded that to share this with your various constituents. Until June 30, 2020, driving with a vehicle registration, operator's license, or chauffeur's license that expired on or after February 1, 2020 does not constitute a violation of the Michigan Vehicle Code. Law enforcement officials must not arrest any person nor impound any vehicle as a result of a vehicle registration, operator's license, or chauffeur's license that expired on or after February 1, 2020. So it goes on to add just a few more details, but I just want people to remind it, if you can't get to a branch, please start making your appointments. You're not driving dirty. It's just the nature of this COVID-19 moment. All right. So I really wanted to put some emphasis on that particular area because I get a ton of questions about how do I get my license renewed. And please know this also, that you can go to a Secretary of State's office for as many as 99 different reasons. As many as 99 different reasons. 49, at least 49 of the 99 you can do online. So I appreciate what the Congresswoman referenced about this digital divide. I recognize everybody's not online, but for those of us who are online, please start online. There are a whole bunch of functions. And then we're putting kiosks, these self-service stations, and a bunch of Kroger's and Myers. So go online, find out where that kiosk is. There are a lot of things that you can get done there. All right. Is that okay for the Secretary, for that part of the Secretary of State function? Because I want to talk about voting and elections a little bit. Number one, most significant thing, if you don't hear anything else I say, do not cancel elections. Do not participate in any conversations about canceling elections. The Congresswoman, again, just highlighted, our president has telegraphed a few things. This skirmish with the post office,
Yes.
and his reference to not particularly supporting a vote-by-mail experience. All of that, in my opinion, is dog whistle politics. He's calling out to his constituents that we're going to stand down on these vote-by-mail experiences, and we're going to stand down. We're going to do what we need to do to interrupt the potential elections process. Michigan voters in 2018 said we want to go forward in a significant way. We passed proposals 2 and proposals 3, which basically come down to new voting rights for Michigan voters. Proposal 2 allows for redistricting by the people instead of politicians. And proposal 3 says no excuse absentee voting, same-day voter registration, automatic voter registration. And we're exercising that authority. Jocelyn Benson, she always tells a story about standing on the foot of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Now, you know that's significant. And she and I were moving around in 2018 in the campaign process, and we were in a bunch of experiences. And I watched how people's hearts were moved when she described her passion and her commitment to community and civil rights and social justice. So what you have is an activist secretary. I think you may have seen where she and your president were going back and forth a couple of days ago because we mailed out absentee voter applications. That's within our purview. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, a bunch of nonprofit and civic organizations all mail out absentee voter applications. We're saying in this COVID-19 experience, we do not want your right to vote to be impeded. So we're making it easier. We've heard from poll workers and clerks who say we're concerned about people coming to the poll. And I know that this is a paradigm shift. In my preacher community, we call it paradigm. It's a paradigm shift for a lot of us because we like to go to the poll. That's a significant experience. Even in our NACP days, we say take your souls to the polls. And then we got a lot of buses, churches who have buses who bus people to the polls. But in this COVID-19 moment, we got to do some things different. I am so encouraged. You know, we'll wind up experiencing a total of 4 elections here in Michigan. March 10, we had the presidential election. May 5, we had elections in a bunch of communities, over 50 communities across the state of Michigan, mostly school millages, school bond related elections. And we've got August 4 and we've got November 3. But what we see is record voter turnout. People are engaged. And what we just saw on May 5 is that people can vote by mail in some significant numbers. So we've got to educate, reach into our community and remind them, please fill out, make application for that absentee voter ballot. Please make application to be a part of the permanent absentee ballot registry. So you automatically get that ballot in the mail. We're calling it vote by mail. It's really vote at home. You get to take your time from the comfort of your dining room table or your kitchen table. You get to really study the issues, study the candidates. It's transformational. Colorado and Oregon, for example, they have been voting by mail, voting at home for some years, 20 plus years, particularly in Oregon, and they enjoy 70 to 75% voter participation in every election. So this is a significant moment where we've got to do some extra education to get people used to this new paradigm. Trusted messengers, record voter turnout, new voting rights in the state of Michigan. And by the way, June 1 is the very last day to make application for this redistricting commission. We're encouraging all of our constituents, all of your constituents, Council President Brenda Jones and Councilwoman Brenda Lawrence. I know you both have been advocating and encouraging people to pay attention, but go to redistrictingmichigan.org. Did I say there's a $40,000 stipend if you are selected as one of the 13 commissioners? This is significant. June 1 is a deadline. As early as October, these 13 new commissioners, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents will begin their work. They'll work for about a year or so. And we're going to come out of this with a whole new political landscape because you'll see a much higher level of citizen involvement. So we've got a lot of opportunities. There is a lot of energy. We don't want people to feel discouraged. And in order to serve on this redistricting commission, no special requirements. You can be like you or I mean, not you and I, but a bunch of people we know who the one thing you cannot be is an elected official. You cannot be married to an elected official. But if you are just an average citizen, you don't have to have any technical sophistication around drawing maps. We're going to bring a lot of experts in to help you see the benefits of using some natural boundaries like a boulevard or a river, or respecting geography lines, city and county lines. You just have to have a heart to serve. To be considered for this redistricting commission. So in addition to redistricting, no excuse absentee voting, same day voter registration. And let me just highlight one thing that we've watched happen. Several thousand people have registered on election day. We had 3 elections, May, August, and November in 2019. We've had 2 already, and we're watching this new voting right play out. The old law said you had to be registered 30 days in advance. That barrier has been removed. What we're watching now are thousands of people register and vote on election day. And guess what? 80% of the people who are registering and voting on election day are all under age 30.
Wow.
That is especially significant because what it says is that young people hear this, and they hear this, but they might not react or choose to act and participate until the very last minute. So I'm saying don't give up on that young voter. And we know that that young voter is especially significant in communities like the city of Detroit. We've identified nearly a couple 100,000 young voters between the ages of 18 and 35 that are only participating at a rate of about 10% consistently. So if we have a secret weapon, it's definitely that young voter. One other thing I'll say about that young voter is that we've learned that this is the reason high schools are so important, and mock elections and civic engagement experiences are so important. Voters who participate in the very first opportunity they get to vote become voters for life. If they vote in that very first opportunity, you remember Reverend Jesse Jackson, as some of us were coming of age, used to tie the voter registration card with your high school diploma. We got to continue to encourage that exact activity. But if that voter at 18 misses their very first opportunity to vote, then it's people like you and me. We spend the rest of our life chasing that voter. So it's so important to get young voters to participate early because they participate for life. So let me stop there. I know we've got we want to allow for some moments for Q&A, and I got 3 or 4 other things.
I don't see any hands up right now. Remember,
Madam President, I also want to highlight that in the HEROES Act, we have $3.6 billion for grants to state for planning for elections. And I know that the Secretary of State here has acknowledged she's received money from the previous one, and it's for to assist the states to ensure they have everything they need during this virus to process elections.
Yes, and we we especially thank you, Madam Congresswoman, for your leadership and your support. And I know you're always paying attention to the things that we need, and God knows we need you. If this were a perfect world, we would want as many resources as we can get from the federal government, because issues like PPE equipment, high-speed tabulators, just resources to
Yes.
people all the time for resources to pay for postage and mailing. And obviously we want you to continue to support the United States Postal Service. Those are critical concerns for the voting process. So we appreciate you. In the state legislative process, we're pushing for a little more time to process our absentee voter applications. What this new paradigm will reveal is that because of the increase in absentee voter applications, we're don't expect election results at 11 p.m. Just because it's going to be a much longer time. And right now, you can't start counting your absentee ballots until the day of. And because of vote by mail, you're going to see an increase. So we really we don't know if the appetite is there, but it would be awesome if we could start counting, or at least processing, those absentee voter ballots 2 or 3 days earlier than the day of. So those are some of the things that we need, but we appreciate your support always, Madam Congresswoman.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me ask you a question, Deputy Secretary of State. And first of all, what I didn't ask you is, how is our Secretary of State holding up? How is Jocelyn Benson doing?
She is high energy. She rocks and rolls every day. She's a marathoner, and she does a couple of marathons every year, but she does 3 miles every day. And somehow
she's the energized bunny, I tell you.
Right. She told the story. I was at an affair with her, and she told the story about a marathon she ran. And I want to say she was 9 months into her pregnancy, and she ran a marathon at 9 months. And I thought to myself, okay, how can you run a marathon at 9 months pregnant? It's high, very high energy, very high energy.
Yeah,
all right, so
she lives right here in the 7 Mile Livernois area, and she says very often she just takes out of the side door, runs down to 7 Mile, over to Palmer Park, around Palmer Park, and back home, or she gets on her treadmill daily. So she's doing well, and she's using all of her power.
Please give her my best and thank her for the job that she is doing. Let me just go back to the same-day registration.
Yes.
What does a person need in order to register to vote on the same day?
Yep. Identification, driver's license is ideal, but you can bring a utility bill or something with your name and address that says you live at a particular location. I would encourage you, if you have a driver's license or photo or any photo ID, I think that's significant and sufficient.
And does it matter whether or not you have been a resident of that particular municipality for a specific time?
I don't know. I mean, if you've moved like a few days prior, we want you to update your voter registration. So that's a great question. We encourage people to go to michigan.gov/vote, check on your voter registration status in advance, so there is no mystery. If you get to the poll on elect, first of all, the way you take advantage of same-day voter registration, same day you've got to go to your clerk's office. You can't go to your polling place. You got to start at your clerk's office, and that's where all of the details. And once you are registered to vote at the clerk's office, they will redirect you to the polling place, which is based on your address. You follow me? If you change your address, it is important that you update as early as possible. If you don't update and you just recently moved, you probably will be sent back to the last polling place assigned to the address on record.
Okay. And I think that's important that we let people know that they need to go to their clerk's office so they don't just say, I want to vote today, and then go to a poll that's open and say, can you register me to vote? Because a lot of times when you send someone from place to place, they get discouraged and they say, forget it, I'm not going through all of this. And they just don't do what they need to do. And so I think it's important that they know you must go to your clerk's office if you're registering on that same day to be able to vote. If you are
off at the clerk's office. And one of the things, Madam President, I thought you might ask was ex-offenders. It is one of the questions we get, and I've been in and out of Pontiac and Flint and Saginaw and over to Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. We've been moving around the state, hosting a variety of conversations about what it takes to get particularly low-performing precincts engaged. And interestingly, one of the most common questions is, I'm an ex-offender, I was recently released, do I have the right to vote? In Michigan, your right to vote is automatically restored on the day you are released. As long as you're not currently serving time or incarcerated and behind bars, your right to vote is automatically restored. And there's really nothing that you have to do. You're registered at the last place you are registered to live. That you just go back to that exact same polling place. But I always encourage people, check your voter registration status so you can be clear and have the best information. And I see you, Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, were you going to add to that?
No, I was saying that has been, I've been in talk with the Democratic Party. That is a myth. And it's all across the country where they'll tell, in some states it is true, but not in Michigan, where they actually feel I can't vote. Yes. And so we miss the voting voice of so many people, especially in Detroit, because Detroit is the #1 return city for citizens. That's correct. So it's really, I know in the 14th district, we're really pushing to educate. We have some returning citizens that are helping us with our messaging to ensure that we get all the votes. And I just got word that Kwame Kilpatrick was released.
Yeah, I've been hearing that. Congratulations, Kwame Kilpatrick. So, well, if Mr. Trump's best friends are all being released, it does make sense. And that's another reason for concern about this whole criminal justice experience. COVID-19 is wreaking havoc in a lot of our correctional facilities. So congratulations to Mr. Kwame Kilpatrick and the Kilpatrick and Cheeks family.
Yes. Most congratulations. I won't get on that conversation today, but we know that the time that he got was too severe. Yeah, it was truly too severe. So congratulations to the Kilpatrick family and to Kwame Kilpatrick. And I know they are welcoming him home with wide open arms. So congratulations to him.
I was in a conversation just in the last week or so with a former Congresswoman, Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick, and she was very excited, very enthusiastic. And she lives now in the Atlanta area, and she says she has enough space. She was anticipating his release. She says she has enough space where basically the first floor is hers, and the second floor she's looking forward to her son coming home.
Oh.
And if you think about it, a part of your heart goes, I can't imagine, having a child in that kind of situation. So I think her heart has been fully restored in this moment. So congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. And so let me go back to questions that I was asking you, Mr. Wheeler, and I'm asking because I know we normally concentrate on high school graduates as they are graduating from high school, and we're able to go into the schools and register them to vote. And sometimes they are at the graduations, registering them to vote. And we know that we was not that fortunate this time because schools are closed. Yes. And so I think it's so important that we still concentrate on those younger people to let them know that, they can still register to vote. Yes. They still have that opportunity, even if it is on the day of elections. That's right. They can still register to vote. And I think one of the things that we have a big problem doing is educating. And I think it's so important that we educate. And as you know, both you and Secretary of State Benson was at Council prior to this COVID-19 talking about voting rights, and along with Clerk Winfrey talking about voting rights and getting people registered, and even talking about absentee voting. And so I know that we say every election, this is going to be the most important election that we've ever had. And this election is going to be
this is the
so
most
important. So important, as we have seen so many drastic changes. We have seen so many things happen. So it's really going to be important that people get registered to vote and go and to vote. Get that absentee application, get that absentee ballot and vote. And then just for our Detroit voters, because I do sit on the election commission, and one of the things that we did was pass a resolution to unanimously asking the governor to issue an executive order that all of the absentee applications can go out to all of the citizens. I received things on my city council Facebook page asking, why can't everyone be mailed an absentee application? Yes, I received it on my city council Facebook page. And so people know that COVID-19 is serious. It's serious, and people want to be able to not have to go out to the polls, and they still want to be able to exercise that right to vote. And just to let people know that even with the absentee voting, that there will still be polls open, and the clerk will still open 2 polls per district.
That's correct.
They should be watching out for their a newsletter from the clerk that will show them where that poll will be located for them to vote if they still want to go out and vote. I am one that like to go to the polls, but I can tell you this year I will be an absentee voter. I'm one that, one that have dealt with the coronavirus myself.
Bless you.
You know, I don't even want, they say that once you have it, you can't get it again. But, there are so many things that have been missed with the coronavirus until I don't know if that's true, false, or indifferent. And so my mask is always on my face. If I have to go out, I keep mask in my purse. If I have to give someone a mask, I ask them, would you like a mask? And I give them a mask, because we know that there are people who may not even know where to get a mask from. They may not even be able to afford a mask. And so I keep them in my purse and give them a mask, but to let them know that if they feel they still want to go to the polls, there will be masks available for them at the polls. If they do not have a mask, there will be sanitizers available for them at the polls. And so no one's rights are being infringed upon if they do not want to do absentee voting. There also 30 days ahead of time will be the satellite offices open in the city of Detroit. And I know Northwest Activity Center is one of the satellite offices. The clerk's office is one of the satellite offices. The election down on the boulevard is a satellite office. Wayne County Community Colleges are satellite offices. And so if they want to go out 30 days ahead of time and vote in person, they will still have that opportunity to do so. So no one's rights are being infringed upon.
And that's especially significant in this COVID-19 moment, that people need to know that all the PPE equipment, the face mask, the gloves, the hand sanitizers, we're working in overtime to make sure clerks have what they need on election day. And let me say thank you also, Madam President, when you invited both the Secretary and our City Clerk before the City Council. Those are magic moments. Lots of people said they saw that conversation and they appreciate the update. I do know that our City Clerk, Janice Winfrey, is working overtime to prepare for these elections, and she described her commitment to high schools. The clerk has been working in the high schools for some time, making sure that we're touching voters. So now this recognizing the digital divide, but this technology is a connector to some degree and enabler to some degree. So we've got to continue to find ways to connect with young people. And I know that our clerk's office, I know that our secretary, we're working overtime to make sure that we're maintaining that connection. Another thing that we want to sort of reassure people is that we're exploring technology to track your absentee ballot. A lot of people say, well, I don't know what happens to my ballot when it gets to the post office or into the mailbox. So the same way when you register for a trip, the airline will notify you if your plane is being delayed, or the airline will notify you if your gate has changed. We are looking at technology by the November election. So on the date that we receive your absentee voter application, we will notify you that we got your request for an application, or we will notify you that your ballot is on the way. We want to notify you that your ballot has been received, and we want to notify you that your ballot has been processed. So we're trying to take advantage of some of these current technologies to increase the comfort level of people voting by mail, voting from home, and in this new technology moment, we want to increase that comfort level. 9,000 people, to Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence's point earlier, on average, 9,000 returning citizens leave Michigan prisons every year. Nearly 50% of them come back to the city of Detroit. That's a very, very important constituent. But one of the other things we've learned is that very often, if you're a returning citizen, voting is not necessarily your highest priority. It might be housing, or it might be jobs and opportunities. Mm-hmm. So, you got to be sensitive to that. You got to bring resources to low-performing voters. You got to be receptive to all of their needs in order to win their favor and to increase the likelihood that they'll participate in the process. So it's got to be holistic.
Thank you. And I know we have several people that are watching on Facebook Live. And again, to our listening audience, if you have questions, if you press *9 on your phone, that will allow you an opportunity to ask the question that you have. The one thing I always say is no question is a dumb question. Right. Other than the question, you hang up the phone and still have on your mind saying, I should have asked that question, but it was a dumb question. And so no question is a dumb question. Get the answers to the questions that you have. We have both our Congresswoman, 14th Congressional District, Brenda Lawrence, with us today, and our Deputy Secretary of State, Heaster Wheeler, on with us today. So now is the time for you to get the answers that you need to the questions that you have. And if you missed this opportunity, shame on you, because I know I'm asking the questions that I have, and I have both of them right here with us right now. And Congresswoman, and I don't see any hands raised, let me ask you a question, being one that came from the post office. You know how important postal workers are. And so the money that you are passed for the postal workers, just talk about that a little, because what we're seeing now is our postal workers having a problem with some of the issues dealing around COVID-19, and now some of the postal workers are only delivering mail to certain areas every other day. There has been a slowdown. So talk about how important that money is, and being one to come from the post office and working with postal workers, firsthand what could possibly be going on?
Well, what we saw, because, you know, few people realize that Postal Service workers are frontliners. Come sleet, rain, snow, we know the slogan will not deter this carrier from his appointed rounds. And so I remember when I was a letter carrier, and it would be a blizzard, and they would tell everyone stay home. They were canceling everything, and my truck and my mail went out every day. We did not stop delivering mail. So what happened is that the virus broke out in some of these large facilities. We have up to 3,000 people working in some of our large processing plants for the post office. And so they had to shut down one in Pontiac, they had to shut it down so they could clean it. They had individuals who were being quarantined because they were exposed. And so they just did not have the manpower. And so because of that, they had to change delivery. But we know that not only did we lose people because of the virus, the Postal Service volume, when we look at delivering the mail and the mail backing up and all the challenges of getting PPEs and cleaning the facility, was extra cost to the Postal Service. And so we have to make that right. One of the things I want to make a point of is that I want people to know how much money the city of Detroit is projected in the HEROES Act. In 2020, that's this year, they're projected to get $1.68 billion. And in 2021, it'll be $843 million that we are giving to the city of Detroit alone. And that's why we really need to step this up and make people aware of it. And another thing, Mitch McConnell made the comment that it was the Democratic wish list. In this bill, we have funding for food resources, we have funding for testing, we have funding to provide funding for low-income families to keep their water and utilities on. So we really, when we talk about, we were really trying to get everything that we could. Yes, we were. And we're just telling the Senate, get to work and do your job. And we are praying that the majority of what we ask for, because it will help the people. No one's benefiting from this but the people. And so we're praying that this does pass.
That's awesome. It's fascinating to me, and I know we're almost out of time, but Congresswoman Brenda Jones, your leadership is so important in this time. But it's always amazing to me, though, that in moments of crisis, all of a sudden we can find the will to do the right thing. I think poor people are very often treated poorly, but all of a sudden, because we're afraid of the pandemic and the fact that they can spread the disease,
yes.
We're finding resources to make sure that they've got a place to live. We're finding resources to make sure water is turned on for fear of the pandemic spreading. And all I'm really saying is there's a hidden cost to racism. There's a hidden cost to poverty. The fact that we try and keep people separate. 100,000 people are likely to die from this pandemic. 30 million people are making application for unemployment, and economies are shut down. So if you're going to address the pandemic of COVID-19, you got to, if you're going to be holistic and address all of these issues, you got to address the pandemic of racism. You got to address the pandemic of poverty, or we'll be back at this moment again. And God bless you on all of your leadership, because you're fighting the good fight, Madam Congresswoman. And Madam President Brenda Jones, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me go back to a subject that's very important. And I still don't see any hands raised, but this is so very important. And I just want to allow both of you to talk about it. I talk about it all the time. And that, and Congresswoman briefly talked about it, and that is Census 2020. And how important it is that people fill out their census. I know I was in DC and was meeting with you, set up a meeting with you, Congresswoman, and you was in a census meeting as we were about to meet. Can you talk about how important it is and what you all look at and what's looked at of the numbers that I received, because right now I believe Detroit is number 13 out of 15 or 17 with not turning in their census. And it's just so important that we get those census forms filled out. Can you just talk about what is included with the census dollars?
So one of the things I want everyone to be aware of, the city, I think it's Livonia, is at 80%.
That's right.
So let's talk about that. That means that city, when we do our formula to count, I apologize, my phone is ringing. When we do our allocation and formula to distribute funding, Livonia may get even more money than the city of Detroit, having less population, but they are more represented because of the amount of return. And you talk about disparity, you talk about poverty. We know Detroit is ranking very high in poverty. If we don't get those federal dollars in for education, for SNAP, for our roads,
Right.
for all those things, you'll see a city that has a lot more resources like Livonia will be able to reap the benefit of those federal dollars, where we're sitting here saying, where is our dollars? Why are we getting such a little amount of money? There's two things as an American citizen. I'm sorry, three things. As an American citizen, you have a responsibility for your freedom, for your rights. One is to vote. The second is to fill out your census, and the third is to serve as a juror in the court system.
Yeah. Civic participation. That's right.
That's a requirement. When you take that oath, or when you're born into this country and you say, I'm an American, with that comes that responsibility. And I can't tell you enough. You may have a job and resources to be able to feed yourself, to do everything that you can. You can pay for your child to go to a private school, but think about our community as a whole. What about that child who doesn't have? What about that family who do not make enough money to feed their family? We must be very deliberate in saying, as an American citizen, like I vote, there should be a sticker saying, I completed my census. It's extremely, extremely important. I'm gonna have to jump off to get on another call. And I just want to thank you so much, Madam President, for allowing me this opportunity. It's always good to look at Heaster, but to hear him and to be on here is really good. Just Godspeed. Please, everyone listening, be safe, and I will see you soon.
Thank you so much.
I know you both have to go. We normally do coffee and conversations from 9 to 10:30. This was a shorter edition, and I pardon both of you. I know you both have very busy schedules, and I just want to say thank you to both of you for being here with us this morning. Thank you both for the job that you do. Again, keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to see those numbers for Michigan high for the census and for voting. God bless you both. I know you both have to go. Thank you so much for being here. I want to just also thank our listeners for taking the opportunity for being with us today. We will be back at 12 noon highlighting our heroes. Until then, please stay safe and be careful. Remember, if you must go out, wear those masks and practice social distancing. Until we meet again, God bless, and again, stay safe. Thank you, Team Jones, for the work that you do. And again, thank you to our listeners, and thank you to our guests and our panelists that were on with us this morning. This will conclude Coffee and Conversation for today. God bless you.